What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review the sixth album by rapper Twista. Basically, this project is called Adrenaline Rush 2007, and it came out in the late summer of 2007. So basically, the concept about this particular product is this is kind of a pseudo sequel to Adrenaline Rush from 1997 as far as those pitches kind of happen. I reviewed that particular album back in the early years of Acid Roots as far as those pitches kind of go with it. Pretty excellent type album for a good pitch of that. Just some good concepts, more 90s glare within it, but it has some pretty good underground type twists within those pitches. This was kind of before his Kanye West days have come up and more commercial rap type days of like albums like Kamikaze the day after in this particular album. But the thing about it was in particular is just the fact that Twisted by this particular stage in late 2007, early 2008 was starting to phase out of like the commercial spotlight. He had at least one or two albums that had some pretty boisterous commercial appeal. Definitely Kamikaze was like a basic virtual classic out of the 2000s. Definitely a very seminal 2000s rap album. Had a lot of vanilla hits on there like Slow Jams and Overnight Celebrity and So Sexy, some of those type ones, Sunshine, some of those type ones in particular. I would definitely say got pretty much like the fifth or even sixth single as far as those pitches can happen, just stretched out across 2004 and even 2005. And then the follow-up album the day after was a pretty big deal as well. That had some good hits on there like Girl Tonight and the Mariah Carey song, which I forget what that one's called. And then like a song with Pitbull called Hit the Floor as far as those pitches can happen. So that was a relative big deal as far as those pitches going to happen. But then after that, Twista took off 2006, considering that he dropped the day after late 2005. But this particular album came out a good portion later, about 2 years after the day after. But the problem with it was is Twista did not really. The problem with it was Twista did not really maintain like the popularity of like the commercial aspects that he had in like the mid 2000s as far as those pitches going to happen. So it was just kind of the tone. He still had a relative budget on here. He was able to secure like a Pharrell feature and like Bone Thugs on here, R. Kelly on here, T-Pain on here, some of those type of folks. But this is kind of within the appeal that it was as if Twista was starting to cross over back into underground rap type territory, where I think he was bigger than Tech N9ne around this particular time, definitely within the tone behind it. But this was kind of within the concept that I think his charting days were virtually kind of over as far as those pitches kind of happen. Now, Give It Up at least charted like very like at the edge of like the rap and hip hop charts. I want to say that hit like 97, 95 on like the Billboard, on like the rap hip hop R&B 100 charts, which is different from the standard Billboard 100. Was this within the pitch behind it? So this album didn't really do that terrific. Really, it fell off the charts pretty quickly in late 2007. It was just kind of a here and there type project. It came out and then it was just gone within the relative about month or month and a half that it came out within the pitch. I remember this album. I remember really enjoying it, and I was surprised just because the quality was on here so extremely to the concept as to why this album just didn't do more terrifically in terms of like what had particularly happened. This is kind of the thing. It was just a number of those albums that kind of had that particular problem just within the pitch. But this is like a virtual classic, not quite on the full-blown cusp of it, but definitely in the nearing range that I'd had to say in particular. Definitely has a good stock amount of gems. This would have to be probably one of Twista's best, I'd say. It competes pretty well with Kamikaze and The Day After, I'd have to say. It may not have like the number one hits, like when you think of Overnight Celebrity or Slow Jams. Doesn't have Kanye West on here, but it does have some good hooks on here. R. Kelly and T-Pain do a great job with some of their hooks. Pharrell does a pretty good job with some of this summer bounce. This is kind of a halfway summer, halfway winter album, so it has some of those type gems to be able to get within those aspects. That has some great appeals to be able to have. Definitely filled with album cuts and just an overall good commerce. Twist is pretty excellent lyricist on here, so this has a lot of fare for that. Definitely pretty good looks for that sort of tone. So yeah, I would have to say there were two singles off this product. Like I was saying, these did not really chart that heavily, which is kind of unfortunate, but it is a concept that these are not ones to overlook, especially if you know more than a few things about Twista, I'd have to say. So Give It Up is a nice one. This has Pharrell on there, and this is a Neptune's beat, but it's kind of a skeletal type one. I don't think this is like the banner best Neptune's beat that you could get, but it is a nice summer hop to kind of get here. Just a back to basics type one. It's like a moist and lush kind of summer tropic festiveness kind of get here. There's some dance club heat. I would definitely feel like within that tone, it's like a skeletal and simple kind of hitter to kind of have. So it's just within the tone. They just make the most of like a simple. They make the most of like a simple kind of island hop as far as those pitch can have with it. Just some good type of feels, great margarita type music, and just like mojito type music, just in the tone as far as those pitches gonna have with it. Just some good type music, get a tan, some of that type fare, some of that good type stuff, just being near water, poolside, some of those type areas to be able to have this great, this real lush type summer music, I'd have to say. But this one, I mean, the thing about this particular song is it's just not as much, it's just not as much of like an immediate grab. I feel like it's kind of off-putting somewhat, like the kind of skeletal production on here. You would think with these big names that having a Neptune's beat and having Pharrell on the hook that this would be something that would probably be one of the best songs off the album, but it just is a minimalist type song just within the tone. It just kind of switches like the tone up and throws like a curveball as far as those pitches can happen just within like the aspect of not really getting something that's just right in your face. That I say there definitely are more ferocious Twista hits on this album, and for the fact that this is the lead single, it's just kind of off-putting because this is not the best song on here, but it's kind of like haphazard, just kind of more like a slow burn type one. But the second single, Creep Fast, is a better one. This is one that's a nice highlight, but it's not really as marketed to like standard radio. This is not as much SFW friendly. I'd have to say it's not as consumer friendly, but it is a nice concept. T-Pain really knocks out the hook on this particular song. Good snag for him around this time. It's like a big city kind of relative mafioso move about, I'd say, about this particular song. Just gussied up, definitely, and it's like a shadowy kind of night weaving, I'd say, about this particular one. Just a sleek hit to kind of get here. So it's a pretty good concept to be able to get some of that type fare, just more penthouse type music, the city type hop within that tone behind it. Just kind of snack run some of that type here, just be able to get this night activity just looking nice, snazzy as far as those pitch would kind of happen with it just within the tone. Just reminds me of something that Tech N9ne could probably be on, some of those type folks. Just more, I mean, it has like somewhat of like the Fat Joe and Biggie type vibes, like a mafioso type song, but not as full bound like complete as if that's the theme of this particular album. It's just a little bit more of like one that just has a little bit more just like pinstripe and kind of more elegant type moves about it. It has to say within it. It's a good pitch for Twist to kind of get this particular one, but it is kind of like a low key type one within the same sense. I'd have to say it's just kind of one that is a little bit more relative. It's an underground. I mean, it has like the commercial appeal having T-Pain on here, but it is relatively underground within the sense of just saying it's like a low key kind of above ground type one, just something that didn't chart either, but it's a good concept that just has some relative commercial bite. So that's the thing. So basically, there's 14 songs in this particular album. There's 19 songs in the album minus the 5 skits on here that narrows it down to 14. Within those pitches, there are 3 songs I don't recommend. So it's 11 out of 14. So this album is going to get a 9.25 out of 10. I just would say within the pitch, basically just all but on the cusp. If I had liked probably one more song, I would have gotten a 10 out of 10. But the 3 songs I don't recommend on here would just be Say, 7-Day Hustle, and No Pistols, which basically No Pistols had one of the worst and kind of more just aggregate type productions on here. It's just kind of one I tried to like this one. It has a Toxic production, which he's pretty good producer for Twist as far as those pitches to kind of happen. But it just was kind of, it's just one that takes a lot of a learning curve, probably more than most folks just would say within the immediate factor. It's just kind of one of the more ones that's just a little bit more, this kind of has a more abrasive production that this is not that consumer friendly within the tone behind it. Just takes a lot of getting used to, which is unfortunate because it's trying to represent the Speed Not Mobsters who are longtime affiliates of Twista, but this within the tone doesn't represent him or his group that well. And Say is just kind of a summary type one, just a typical kind of Jazzy Faye type production on there. Not, this was kind of one, it was just typical kind of Jazzy Faye type fare. You've seen songs like this when Jazzy Faye will do these type of ones on like T.I. and Lil Wayne's albums, some of those type pitches, just standard kind of typical bop of some of that type fare. Even Rick Ross has got some of these Jazzy Faye type ones, but it's just so stereotypical within it. It's just a summer breeze type one. It works for what it is within a relative sense, but this one just didn't really jump off the page. Just kind of, if you're not in the mood for like that summer breeze kind of hop and bop, it just doesn't really have as much appeal. This just feels like something Manny Fresh or T.I. should have been on. They just nailed it a little bit better. But it has some big names on there, but it just kind of just didn't nail it. It was just not as equipped to nail it nearly as well as like that particular pitch behind it. And then like 7-Day Hustle is kind of another one that's just like some summer breeze type one. This just felt like a car wash type song, some more kind of out and about, this vehicle friendly type one to kind of have for like some of that standard commotion, just being in a bustling and just overall peppy and just feel good type mode. But it just didn't really, if you're not feeling like the vibe of the particular song, it just doesn't really have the same commotion because it's not as much of like Get Hella Tore Up or Just Flirt with Some Beasties type song kind of gets this within the tone and just kind of maybe not so much full blown being car friendly, but definitely within the aspect of just having like a relative kind of optimism that this is not as intoxicating as full bound within the production of it. I'd have to say it's just kind of definitely some car wash type music and just kind of feel the summer breeze. But for some reason, the summer songs just didn't hit as fittingly for me on this particular album. I mean, Give It Up was kind of here and there. I mean, I do recommend that song, but it's not as much of like a full blown victory. Say was not as much of a full blown victory. And 7 Day Hustle is not as much of like a full blown victory, but the winter songs, some of these songs here like Whip Game Proc, more wintery songs on here like Whip Game Proper, Wrist Stay Rocky, and possibly like Ain't No Hose. Some of those type ones just have that particular vibe just nailed more thorough, I'd have to say, within the time. Maybe even Love Rehab might be a winter song. But yeah, just to talk about some of these. So yeah, speaking of Whip Game Proper, this is like a Lil Wayne. This is like a feature that snags Lil Wayne in like his prime era and like the second half of 2007 when he was working on the Carter 3. It's like an icy kind of vintage late 2000s Southern Fried hitter on here. Pretty excellent concept for that. It's like a primary Lil Wayne. I would definitely say, and Twista shreds on this song as well. I'd have to say. So it's a good concept. Good two lyricists kind of get on here. The need would probably be a lot more Lil Wayne and Twista team ups. I'd have to say within that pitch. Just some excellent type fair kind of get this one. It's a real nice minty type one. This has a lot of bright and icy kind of appeal about how this particular kind of works. Kind of a forgotten about song, but still relatively popular. This was a big deal back in 2007 just because anything Lil Wayne did back in those times was just the automatic heat. So it's just a good pitch to kind of get that. The song I go back with, and it's pretty excellent highlight on here, would be Pimp Like Me. I'd say this is like a classic Twista album cut. I would definitely feel like a great song to get hella tore up to. I would definitely have to say just have hella bruise, some of that typeness just to be able to get. And this as like a DJ. There's definitely like some DJ Screw like heat to kind of have. There are some chopped and screwed songs on here. So I like the concept of this kind of being like a relative kind of Southern Fried, almost Texas Fried kind of Twist album. Songs like Whip Game Proper, Pimp Like Me, Charged, Wrist Stay Rocky, The Come Up, and possibly like in some senses Trouble kind of have that relative type of feel, just something that DJ Screw or just more Paul Wall kind of slagged on some syrup type fare to kind of get within that tone. This definitely feels vintage to that particular side. There's some excellent typeness to kind of get there. Love Rehab with R. Kelly is a real excellent one. It's like a dreary and kind of swash neighborhood sauntering to kind of get off this particular song. Just a romantic kind of hop and bop. I would definitely feel like in just some candlelight toke type music to kind of get within that tone. So candlelight, just smoking like the candlelight as far as those pitches would kind of happen. Just some good type fare, just an excellent type concept for some of that good this kick back with Chica as far as that good type kick back with Bell as far as those pitches kind of happen. Just more kind of probably just feels great between like 6:30 and about feels great for anything past like mid late day, anything past like 6:30 to about damn near almost midnight. I had to say within the tone, just some excellent type fare for that. Real nice Drury type one kind of get. Love Rehab is a real nice Drury type one, and another excellent highlight and collaboration from Twista and R. Kelly. Just like on Kamikaze and Category F5, they just continue to have these highlighted ones. So it's good team ups there. Ain't No Hose with Bone Thugs is another highlighted one. Definitely within that pitch. It's like a glistening kind of Midwest dredge kind of get here. It just really feels like something makeshift, I'd have to say. This definitely like some late 2000s kind of Bone Thugs with like a twist of edge just about that particular commerce. They hadn't really done that many songs. I want to say they even had a beef at one particular point within the pitch behind it. But this is definitely like some Hustlers comic to kind of get here. So within that fair, just kind of some makeshift, just another evening type one, kind of similar to Love Rehab, some of those type pitches. It's great for like 4:30, 6 to about 6:30 pitches like that, just within the tone behind it. This probably has one of the best beats on this album. It's a real sparkling type production on here as far as those pitches kind of happen. It's a real nice one. It really has that Midwest type glare. It's a great song to put Bone Thugs particularly on because they just weren't as commonly around just in like the late 2000s. They did have an album that came out in 2007, but it was just kind of within the appeal that most folks had kind of forgotten about them after like the song I Tried kind of wore off as far as those pitches kind of happens. It's just within the tone. It's kind of getting some extra bops within that. I Ain't That Nigga is a definite highlight on here. This is like a throwback kind of synthy highlight like 90s California type sound, like the gangster rap days. I'd have to say this definitely reminds me of like 97 Twist, I'd have to say here. And this is just like a deep funk to kind of get off this particular song. So it definitely has some good bass and thump about this particular one. Real nice, this typical kind of, this is one when the album is talking about being like Adrenaline Rush 2007. This is definitely one here that has some of the most aspects of like old school kind of Twist. Feels like one of those ones feels like one of those songs that he did off Adrenaline Rush from 1997, probably the title track Adrenaline Rush as far as those pitch can happen. That was a real excellent type song. But yeah, real nice one. Another wintry type song on here will be Wrist Stay Rocky. It's like a Chilean kind of chopped up southern beast of a song kind of get here. It goes great with Whip Game Proper, like I was saying. Good excellent concept for that, and this is an easy kind of winter jam. Just within some of those aspects, just some good combos kind of get within that tone. Good type fair to kind of have like that relative aspect of just being iced out into some pitches like that. Just looking spiffy, some pitches as far as those particular fairs going to happen. Basic kind of vanilla club noise. So these are just some nice ones going to have the same venue. Now I would say this is like an easy kind of 1-2 punch with Whip Game. This is an easy kind of 1-2 punch with Whip Game Proper. I would definitely have to feel like here, and probably Ain't No Hostess within some of those pitches. Just some good type, just step out just within that tone. This is pretty damn social type project to get within that fair. So some excellent type concepts. Charged is a nice one. It's like a glaring kind of street cut with like after hours strolls about it. I would definitely feel like here, just a basic kind of neighborhood comic to kind of definitely have, and just like some late tasks to kind of have just within the pitch. So just, hitting up the mailbox, getting some last minute bills paid, some of those type of fares, just within the pitch behind it, just getting towards the aspect of just shopping in like the night sense, just getting some conducts, just maybe hitting up like Popeyes real late, some of that type of fares for us. So pitch kind of happen with it. This is a real nice one to just be high as hell to, and just feel the emphasis of like the charge is like a real nice one to be high as hell to, and just feel the emphasis of the songs for us. So pitch kind of happen. This is definitely pretty good smoker's toolkit of a project here. Plenty of songs to really smoke up to as far as those pitch kind of happen. Just some real nice night commerce and pretty good homies music within that aspect, as well as the calmer basically like 3 6 Mafia, just a little bit more, not as much crunk and gnarled and in your face within the tone, but it is the concept of getting some of these street cuts on here that do have some of that glariness about it. Charge is one of those. Another one like that is Trouble. This is like an out in the crisp night kind of night wind type song. Trouble is like an out in like the crisp night wind to kind of get here. Just a relative kind of horror tone trekking. I would definitely say about this one. Definitely good for like some snack run and tasks wrap up to kind of get within that pitch. So it's just some good fares. Pretty good 1-2 punch for some of these. Charge, the come up, and Trouble are all some nice ones kind of get within that fare. Just like Taco Bell runs, gas station runs, just picking up goodies for us. Those things we kind of go just within that fare. Typical good conduct about that. Just in standard type commerce with some of your homies, just picking up swishers, some of that good stuff. Backwoods, I would definitely say. The come up is another highlighted one, just like I was saying. It's like a slagged and kind of chopped and screwed outing night to kind of get here. Just a night venue kind of zone out. I would definitely feel like great smokage toolkit to kind of get within that tone. So this is definitely one when you're just at a night venue, kicking back a bit, just enjoying the times. This is a good one to kind of marinate out a bit, just kind of relax, just kick back with this like the effect of like the head trips as far as those pitches gonna happen. Just once again, great smokage toolkit. Another chopped and screwed type one, kind of get within that tone. It's real nice and emphasize type one. This production can almost get grating, but it is a good enough song to where it's not quite as full bound. It's just kind of the concept. If you're more looking to get annoyed, if you're just kind of in an Aggie mood, this might not be as much of a full bound song to kind of have on full display, but it is a nice one within the tone of just having that relative appeal. Has pretty good relative sample on there, just within the sense of not being it just not getting jarring. Yeah, I look after that's the concept about this particular album as far as those fairs kind of have with it. I think I recommended every song on here I recommend. So just within the tone, this album gets a 9.25. I would definitely say the social score, that's kind of tricky. I would definitely say about the social score, probably the aspect behind it is I would say the social score would probably just get like a 9 out of 10. I would give it a higher score. It definitely has the gems on here within the aspect, but this is just not that commercial friendly of like a project in terms of casualized type stuff. I feel like in most cases, there are some ones on here like the T-Pain song Creep Fast, the R. Kelly song Love Rehab for the Ladies, Give It Up is like a decent one, but it's just kind of skeletal and not as much casual bound. There is the Bone Thugs song on here. There is the Lil Wayne song on here, but in terms of like something that's like a number one, number three, top 10 single, something like that, it's like the hugest song. Twista doesn't really have like career highlights on this particular project, at least in terms of the singles. It's just within the aspect. This is a great album, very impactful, very cohesive, very inspired, but this doesn't have like the casual marketing as he started to cross back into more underground territory. So it's just within the tone, but it is excellent. It's just not as much casual bound. It just for folks that may have a little bit more like pensiveness about it. It may not be as much of a full-blown convincement, but I would just probably, play songs like Whip Game Proper, Creep Fast, Love Rehab, some of those type ones just within the pitch. Ain't No Ho, some of those type ones within the tone, but it is some excellent type fare. Yeah, I would say in terms of the future, like Twista, I'm not really as full bound sure what Twista's been up to in these recent times. I know he dropped an album in 2017 and 2019 within the tone, but I don't know what he's done like the 2020 as far as those pitches kind of happen. He might have dropped like some degree of a project, maybe like an EP or something within that fare, but I'm not really as full bound sure. But just within the pitch, this is a virtual classic, definitely some excellent type fare, highly inspired, Twisted just within the pitch, has plenty of good gems on here despite the fact it's not as much casual dynamite, but it definitely is pretty excellent, I'd have to say. So I would just fuck with that and just take the plunge.